So I am really grateful to be here today, and part of it is because the Kenyan community really feels like home to me. Now, I gave a talk many years ago called A Journey Home, where I spoke about my move from England to Canada and how that outer journey reflected an inner one, a spiritual journey of discovering who I am. And I said then that home is not just a place. Home is a state of consciousness, a mental atmosphere, a feeling. And I also recognize that for many of us, home means many things. It can be a house, yes, but it can also be a village, a family, a community, a place where your people are, a place where you belong. And apparently, I'm not done talking about home because lately a new question has been showing up for me. What happens when we feel a long way from home? Partly this came up for me because I am in the process of helping my mother move from England to Canada, and soon there will be no longer a home there for me to return to. And partly because the world is changing so quickly that the feeling of home has become even more important to me. Where can I relax, let go, and just be me? Where do I feel at home? That feeling is sacred. And I think we all know what it feels like when that is missing. Whether we've moved across countries or from a village to a city or simply from one stage of life to another, we've all had moments where we feel out of place. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can be in a familiar place and feel completely out of place. And you can even be in your own home and not feel at home. So, what is that? What creates that sense of distance? Because if home is a feeling, then being a long way from home must also be a feeling. Sometimes it comes from being in an unsafe place or with unsafe people. And sometimes it comes from something within us, a disconnect from who we are. In my earlier talk, I spoke about how each home I lived in reflected my mental atmosphere at the time. My childhood home in England was a place of curiosity, learning, and questioning. My early years in Canada were a mix of freedom and, let's be honest, a lot of chaos. I lived in a town called Penticton, and there I revealed my beliefs about relationships very clearly and not always in a way that I enjoyed. Let's call that an ad-go, another darn growth opportunity. In other words, life teaching me a lesson the hard way. Don't know if I'm alone in that. But what grew from that was understanding. Wherever I went, there I was. I could move countries, change houses, reinvent myself, but I still brought my mental atmosphere with me. So if I felt a long way from home, it wasn't about geography. It was about consciousness. And I think that's something many of us are still learning. Because we live in a world that tells us if you just find the right place, you'll be happy. If you just find the right people, you'll belong. If you fix the outside, the inside will follow. But our teaching reminds us it works the other way round. Home is not something we find, home is something we create. It is always about consciousness first, as Dr. Holmes talked about. Recently, I watched the movie Project Hail Mary, where a man wakes up alone in space, about as far from home as you can get. And at the same time, we were watching real life space exploration, sending humans further than we've gone before with Artemis 2. And it got me wondering, what does home mean when you are floating in the vastness of space? Astronauts talk about something called the overview effect. When they look back at Earth, they don't see borders or divisions. They see one interconnected, fragile, beautiful home. And I thought, maybe we don't have to go to space to remember that. Maybe we just have to come back to ourselves. Because yes, this planet is our home. And yet, how often do we feel disconnected from it, from each other, and even from ourselves? With all those rapid changes happening in our world, it can feel like everything is shifting. And maybe it is. Maybe this is part of our evolution. This thinking reminds me of a book I read years ago, Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. In that story, humanity goes through a profound transformation. At first, everything looks like progress, but underneath, something deeper is happening. Humanity is being invited to evolve beyond its sense of separation. And what emerged was not a collection of individuals, but a unified consciousness, something connected, something whole, what we might call oneness. Now, it's a dramatic story, and I'm not suggesting we're all about to dissolve into a cosmic group mind. But what struck me is this: we are not meant to live in separation. Something within us is always calling us back, back to connection, to unity, and to wholeness. And I believe that what many of us are seeking, that feeling of being connected, of belonging, of being at home. And that is one reason why many of us have a spiritual community. There is an African proverb that says, a person is a person because of other people. And I love that because it reminds us that we don't exist in isolation. We come into ourselves through relationship, through community, through connection. Home is not just within us, it is also between us, uniting us. And when I think about that, alongside the astronauts seeing one Earth, one home, I wonder, what if the journey home is not about going somewhere else? What if it's about growing into a deeper awareness of our connection with everything and everyone? Because when we forget that connection, when we get caught in division, judgment, isolation, that's when we feel like we're a long way from home. But when we come back to compassion, to understanding, to something that looks a lot like love, we begin to remember not just who we are as individuals, but who we are as part of something greater. And maybe that is what coming home really means. I know this feeling personally. You may, you may not know this, but I am neurodivergent, which means sometimes I don't always read social cues the way others do. And sometimes I say the wrong thing, put my foot in my mouth. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who's done that, but it is something that I do. But maybe not in the same way. I think we've all had moments where we feel like we don't quite fit, like we've said the wrong thing, like we don't belong. And in those moments, it can feel like we're a long way from home. But what I have experienced and what I am deeply grateful for is community. Friends, family, all of my spiritual community, people who meet with me, and then they meet with me with understanding, people who see my heart, even when my words aren't perfect, people who offer grace. And in that grace, I come home again. That has taught me something important. If I want to feel at home, and if I want others to feel at home around me, then I must be willing to create that space, not by being perfect, but by being present, not by getting everything right, but by being kind. Because home is not perfection. Home is acceptance. I have spoken before, but maybe not in a Kenya talk, about finding home in Al-Anon, which is a 12-step group for those who are not familiar with it, for people who have a loved one who has a problem with alcohol. In that group, I experienced for the first time unconditional love, where I could be myself, make mistakes and grow, learn to set boundaries and love myself. That was one of the first places outside of a physical home that truly felt like home. And then I found this teaching, this philosophy, this spiritual family. This is my spiritual home, not because of a building, but because of consciousness. Because here I am reminded who I am, and I am supported in becoming more of that. And I hope you feel that way too. I also do have my physical home, my house. Her name is Harriet. That is a story for another day. She is an eclectic mishmash of color and decoration with no one style, just a conglomeration of stuff that I like, which, if you know me and have heard my previous talks, you'll know is a perfect reflection of my mind. But increasingly, I am realizing this. Home is not something I return to. Home is something I bring with me. It is the peace I cultivate within myself. It is the compassion I extend to others. It's the willingness to say, you belong here. Yes, you and you and you. But more and more, I'm realizing this. Home is not something I return to. Home is something I bring with me. You belong here. And what if we all practice this? What if instead of waiting to feel at home, we became people who create home wherever we go? At home, at work, in community, in everyday moments. Imagine walking into a room and instead of asking, do I belong here? You silently affirm to yourself, I bring belonging with me. Imagine meeting someone and instead of wondering if they will accept you, you choose to accept them first. This is how we shorten the distance. This is how we come home, because in truth, we are not separate. We are expressions of one life, one presence, one human family, and more. So even when we feel lost, even when we feel disconnected, even when we feel like we've wandered far away, we are not a long way from home. We are simply being invited to remember, to come back to that inner place of peace, that inner place of truth, that inner place of belonging. So today I invite you to reflect, where do you feel at home? Where are your safe spaces? When do you feel most like yourself? And how can you bring that feeling into more of your life? Because home is not behind you. It is not somewhere you have to get to. Home is within you, and it is available right here, right now. So I'm going to end with these words of blessing. May you walk in peace. May you know that you belong. May your heart feel at home wherever you are. May you be surrounded by community, people who see you, people who support you, who walk beside you. May you carry kindness with you, and may you meet kindness along your path. And may you always remember you are never alone. Namaste. Thank you. Asante Sana.